I will introduce Jordan, who is a general foreman with Fincantieri. So he is going to now be taking the hot seat and telling us about what he does as a general foreman at Fincantieri. So, morning, Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. As Gary already talked about the insides of Marinette Marine, I don't really think I need to reiterate on that. But a little bit about myself. High school, I played sports, basketball, baseball, football. Sports kind of kept my head on straight, per se. School was very important to me. Math was easy to me, which I'm very thankful for. So throughout high school, I took a few college classes to start my associate's degree. Once I got out of high school, I worked as a bartender, and I worked as a funeral director, apprentice funeral director. So I went to the local campus here and got my associate's degree at UW Marinette Green Bay. And I took a lot of my college classes, anatomy, chemistry, business management, towards being able to own my own funeral home. And as I did that, for 4.5, 5 years, I realized that wasn't for me. So then I applied down here at 2 positions, electrician, which I felt I was the most comfortable in. Come to find out, naval electricians compared to residential electricians are totally different. So I started off as an electrician, didn't really know anybody down here, and was in the right place at the right time and transitioned into be a ship fitter. And after about 4 months, I had broken my ankle and I was off on leave, and I got interviewed for the other position I applied for, which was it was called an expediter in the beginning, and then it changed to a coordinator. So I think that was one of the best positions I ever did down here, as becoming a manager, because it taught you. I didn't really have anybody that reported to me, but I dealt directly with the managers, such as Gary, such as a couple of the other people here in every department. So you dealt with purchasing, you dealt with planning, you dealt with scheduling, you dealt with manufacturing. I was out there with manufacturing the whole time, so that I went to these meetings and we had to problem solve for these people. So I was to the point that for the NOAA, I was in charge of dock cleanup for the launch as an expediter. So it was a very involved position that kind of got my feet wet in every department. So I did that for about 3 years, and actually Gary and another guy approached me about becoming a foreman, and somebody had left at the time, and I applied for it and I got the job. So I became a hull department in SOC 5 and 6 foreman for erect. So I had ship fitters and welders reporting to me, and we put all the modules together to create the ship. And then we were also in charge of walkout and launch. My crew were the workers, and I did that for about 3 years. And I transitioned down to stage of construction 2, where, as we talked about, everything goes from 2D to 3D. I did that for about 2.5 years. And then I transitioned up to SOC 1, which is where we make the 2-dimensional panels. And while I was in SOC 1, I took a job as a general supervisor and moved back down to SOC 2. So as I went through the yard, SOC 5 and 6, I was dockside for about, I would say, 2 out of my 3 years while I was doing the coordinating job with all departments. I was dockside. So that's where we had 3 different contracts on the dockside at one time. We had the NOAA, we had the ARV, which was an Alaskan research vessel, and then we had the LCS. All different contracts, and it was like getting thrown to the wolves. But you manage and you figure it out, and if you can make it through that, I feel like you can make it through anything. So as I transitioned all through the yard, we talked about people skills and public speaking. That was one of the things I took in college. It's very important, especially as you move up in managing, knowing how to present yourself, knowing how to act professional, but still get your point across and get the results out of your employees. Computer skills, I feel are very important. One of the things would be like Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Those are all, we're kind of using a version of Zoom, PowerPoint right now, but these are all important things that we use on a day-to-day basis. I know Gary talked about math. That thankfully was one of my easiest subjects, and it is used everywhere. It's just part of every department, and everywhere you go, we're all metric. We're all metric system here at the shipyard. So learning how to do calipers or micrometers or things of that nature, those are things that are used daily here in different departments. Blueprint reading is something, if that's offered in high school, that would be something to take as well. A lot of times when we do interviews, we ask that if somebody mentions that they were part of, like, I think it's called like Skills USA or something to that nature, as a fitter and as a welder, that's something like I trigger on, and then I question. They're like, okay, so what did that involve? They fabricated a toolbox or fabricated a bench or whatever, and they did the blueprint reading, they fabbed it, they welded it, and they competed in these different things. And that's something for a ship fitter or a welder here that kind of lets us know that, hey, these guys kind of got an interest in it. They know what's going on. They have a feel for it already.
I don't want to interrupt you because you've got a few minutes yet, Jordan, but can you explain, both you and Gary talked about SOCs, SOC 3, SOC 5, SOC 6, what exactly that means?
SOC is a stage of construction. So a stage of construction 1 is building 30 to panel line. As Gary talked about, that's from the start. That's from the start of the I-beam and the sheets of steel getting delivered, stored, and then we do the cutting of the I-beam to make tees or stiffeners. We do the cutting of the steel to make the parts. To make the parts not only for SOC 1 or stage construction 1, but make the parts throughout the entire erection of the ship. So in building 30, SOC 1, they cut parts that might not be installed for a year and a half later. It's the start. So you make everything 2D, and then stage of construction 2 is when you make modules, individual modules, which you put together to make grand modules. So there's a grand mod construct, which is part of stage construction 2 as well. SOC 3 is paint, which Gary talked a little bit about. SOC 4 is pre-outfit, stage of construction 4. And then stage of construction 5 and 6, which is going to be your erection of the ship, is all in building 10. And it goes all the way to SOC 10. SOC 10. So 7 would be the walkout and the launch. SOC 8 through 10 would be your testing, your trials, and everything to the delivery of the ship. So SOC is SOC, stage of construction.
It's a way of breaking up the vessel, the build of the vessel, into activities being done. So in SOC 1, that's where we build all the sub-assemblies and all the simple foundations and panels. SOC 3 is where they're going to paint all the modules.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that definition, because I was just a little unclear on that. If you've got anything more to share before we get into questions?
Well, I mean, we could talk about a lot of things. I mean, learning how to, just thinking of things what kids can do in school to better themselves, or to make them more prepared. Some of the things that we look to as you become an adult, safety is very important at work and outside of work. We need people to show up safe and be healthy and capable of doing the job, but we also want them to leave safe and be able to go home to their families and whatnot. So making smart decisions outside of work, at work are very important. you know, and doing the right things, being part of, like, I'm part of the public a lot. You know, I coach baseball, I coach basketball, I officiate basketball, baseball, football, softball. I try to be involved with the community, with the baseball fields and the rec departments around here. That all ties into everything. You know, we have, as we grow bigger, we get people from all over the U.S. that come here to work, that are involved in our community. So the more you can become involved in the community, I think helps as well, because we contribute a lot to the community too, you know, through scholarships or whatever the case may be. Becoming members of like the Elks Club or some of these local organizations, that all, it's a big circle, and it all comes back to help everybody.
That's a great point. I know it's not uncommon for people to switch careers during their lifetime, but you made a pretty substantial switch from funeral director to working at Fincantieri. What skills were you already learning as a funeral director that you could bring with you onto your job here?
I would say the business management, so like the accounting skills or economics. I took microeconomics and macroeconomics in college. Not so much of the anatomy, but the chemistry a little bit with our safety department and the hazards. Some of that becomes, you know, it's not like it's learning anything new. But I would say the big things would be through the business management portion of knowing Microsoft Office, knowing how to be organized and keep things organized, knowing how to present certain things to your crews. I think sometimes kids learn easier on visual rather than somebody just lecturing. You know, showing a picture, showing a graph, showing anything seems to teach kids or young adults easier than just words of mouth.
Great. Allison, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently in your career path? Advice on what to do rather than what to do versus what not to do. But is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
I can't say I do. I mean, like was said, I mean, I went from taking college courses to go to mortuary school to now being a general supervisor in shipbuilding, two totally opposite spectrums. I guess I don't think I would. You know, I mean, everything happens for a reason, and you live and learn. And something triggered my mind to come here and apply. And the main reason I applied here was because I was traveling so much. I was in Green Bay half the time, and up here working jobs, building houses, roofing, siding. You know, I was all over. So I just wanted a steady job, and I happened to do it at the right time. And we're growing tremendously, and I plan on retiring from it.